Hello and welcome. We are very pleased to have you join us for this session today. Before we begin, please note that this review is generated by AI. Today, we are going to examine a text that is quite significant in the field of leadership and personal discipline. We will be analyzing the book, Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life, and maybe the world. This was written by Admiral William H. McRaven.
Hello, it is a pleasure to be here. This book is an excellent subject for our discussion. It offers a very structured approach to resilience. Our objective today is to provide a detailed, comprehensive analysis of the 10 lessons presented in the text. We will treat these lessons as technical protocols for leadership. We want to understand the mechanics behind these simple rules and how they apply to high-pressure environments.
That is a very clear objective. To set the context for you, the listener, this book expands on a commencement speech. Admiral McRaven gave this speech at the University of Texas at Austin. This was on May 17, 2014. He was initially concerned that the students might not welcome a military speaker, but the speech was, well, it was incredibly well received.
Exactly. It seems the lessons from Navy SEAL training have a universal application. They translate perfectly to everyday life. Let us begin with Chapter 1. The title is Start Your Day with a Task Completed. This chapter establishes the foundation of his entire philosophy.
I agree. The setting here is the basic SEAL training barracks in Coronado, California. The environment is described as very simple, or Spartan. There is no air conditioning, the windows are open, and you can hear the ocean. The room contains 4 beds and a closet. It is not a place of comfort.
That is correct. It is a place of function. The primary activity in this setting is the daily inspection of the bed. McRaven describes this process in great detail. It is not just about tidiness, it is a strict procedure.
Can you describe the specific standards required for this procedure? It sounds very demanding.
Certainly. The bottom sheet must cover the mattress perfectly. It must be very tight. The top sheet goes over that. Then a gray wool blanket is tucked tightly under the mattress. This is where the technique becomes critical. He mentions a specific method called hospital corners.
Hospital corners. That involves folding the sheet at a 45-degree angle at the corners of the mattress, correct?
Precisely. It creates a very sharp, clean look.
Yeah.
The precision is the key variable here. The pillow also has a specific requirement. It must be centered exactly at the top of the bed. It must intersect at a 90-degree angle with the blanket.
And the instructors had a very specific method to verify the quality of the work. The text calls it the quarter test.
The quarter test, exactly. The instructor would take a metal coin, a quarter, and flip it into the air. When it hit the mattress, it had to bounce high enough for the instructor to catch it in his hand. This indicated that the sheets were pulled tight enough. If the coin did not bounce, the trainee failed the inspection.
That is a very high standard for such a simple task. What is the logic behind this protocol? Why does a warrior need to make a bed with such precision?
The analysis focuses on the psychological benefits. Making the bed is the first task of the day. When you complete it correctly, you achieve a small sense of pride. It demonstrates discipline. It frames the mind for the rest of the day. One task completed leads to another task completed.
It creates a positive momentum.
A positive momentum, absolutely. It establishes a pattern of success very early in the morning. There's also a concept of system failure recovery in this chapter. The text suggests that not every day will go well.
That is a very important point. In a high-stress environment, external factors can cause a miserable day. You might fail an inspection or struggle on a run.
Exactly. However, when you return to your room at the end of the day, you see the made bed. You made it. It is a physical reminder that you have control over something. It provides encouragement that tomorrow will be better. McRaven provides historical examples of this in his own life.
He made his bed after recovering from a serious parachute accident, I believe.
He did. He also maintained this habit while sleeping on simple army cots in Iraq. The bed was a constant variable in a chaotic world. It gave him a sense of order.
That is a powerful concept. Control what you can control. Let us move to Chapter 2. The title is You Can't Go It Alone. This chapter introduces a specific piece of equipment used in training, the rubber raft.
The rubber raft is a mechanism for teaching teamwork. It is 10 feet long. It requires 7 men to carry it and paddle it. The text describes how the trainees must carry this raft everywhere. They run with it on their heads. They paddle it through the heavy surf.
The key dynamic here is the distribution of effort. No single person can move the raft effectively. It relies entirely on the synchronization of the group.
Exactly. And the text mentions a specific protocol for when a crew member is struggling. Sometimes a man is sick or exhausted. The protocol is to paddle harder.
So if one member is unable to give 100%, the other members must pick up the slack.
That is correct. They dig deeper into the water with their paddles. They might even share their food rations to help the weak member recover.
Yeah.
Later, the roles might reverse. The strong member today might be the weak member tomorrow.
The takeaway is clear. No individual can survive this training alone. You must find people to help you paddle. This applies to combat, and it applies to life in general.
Absolutely. You need a team to navigate difficult situations. Moving on, Chapter 3 has a very interesting title. Only the size of your heart matters. This section challenges the assumption that physical size equals better performance.
The text describes a specific boat crew called the Munchkin crew. This crew is composed of the smallest men in the class. No one was over 5 foot 5 inches tall.
In a physical environment like SEAL training, one might assume they would fail. The larger men often laughed at the small flippers the Munchkin crew had to wear. However, the data showed a very different result.
It is noted that the Munchkin crew often outperformed the taller, stronger crews. The text says they swam much harder to compensate for their shorter limbs.
Precisely. They operated with higher efficiency and a massive amount of effort. The text provides a case study of a man named Tommy Norris. He was nearly removed from training.
The instructors believed he was too small and too thin, correct? He did not look like a typical military operator.
That is true. However, Tommy Norris proved that visual assessment is not an accurate metric for determination. He succeeded because of his intense effort. He later had a very distinguished military career. The lesson is that you must measure a person by the size of their heart. Determination is the most valuable asset you can have.
I see. That brings us to Chapter 4. The title is Life's Not Fair Drive On. This chapter describes a training punishment known as the sugar cookie. That sounds like a strange name for a penalty.
It does sound strange, but the sugar cookie is a very uncomfortable protocol. If a trainee failed an inspection, they were ordered to run into the ocean. They had to get completely wet, dressed in their full uniform.
And then they had to roll in the dry sand on the beach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They rolled until they were covered from head to toe. The sand sticks to the wet uniform, it covers the face, and enters every gap in the clothing. It is cold and highly irritating, and they had to stay in that condition for the rest of the day.
The most important part of this lesson is why the punishment was given. Sometimes a trainee performed the inspection perfectly, but the instructor still punished them.
That is the core data point of this chapter. The punishment was sometimes completely random. The instructor would find a flaw even if none existed. The purpose was to teach the trainees that life is not fair.
Sometimes you do everything perfectly and you still fail. A common reaction is to complain or feel like a victim.
Absolutely. However, the instructors did not accept complaints. The definition of a strong person is not how they succeed when things are easy, it is how they deal with unfairness. McRaven shares the story of Moki Martin to illustrate this.
Moki Martin was an accomplished SEAL. He was very physically capable, but he suffered a tragic accident.
Yes, he did. He was riding a bicycle and collided with another vehicle. The accident left him completely paralyzed from the waist down. He could have been very bitter. He could have blamed the unfair nature of the event.
Instead, he continued to drive on. He became a painter. He founded a local triathlon. He did not complain.
Exactly. He exemplifies the protocol of accepting unfairness and moving forward. He did not let the random sugar cookie event define his life.
That is very inspiring. Chapter 5 is titled, Failure Can Make You Stronger. This chapter introduces another training penalty. This one is called the circus.
The circus is a physical correctional mechanism. If you failed to meet the daily physical standards, your name was put on a list. At the end of the day, those on the list had to endure 2 additional hours of physical training.
This consisted of hundreds of flutter kicks and push-ups. It was designed to wear the trainees down. It meant more fatigue and less recovery time for the next day.
That is correct. However, there is a paradoxical result from this punishment. The text notes that the students who went to the circus often improved their performance.
The intent was to break them, but the result was that those who attended got physically stronger.
Precisely. The extra work increased their physical capacity. It also built mental resilience. They became accustomed to failure and learned to survive it. Failure became a training tool. They no longer feared failing because they knew they could handle the consequences.
Admiral McRaven shares a significant personal failure in this chapter. He was fired from a squadron command.
This is a critical leadership example for our listeners. He was relieved of duty because he tried to change the organizational culture too quickly. It was a major career failure. He was moved to a different, less prestigious position.
But he did not quit. He was given a second chance with a smaller platoon.
Exactly. He used the failure as motivation. He worked harder than everyone else to prove his value. Eventually, he returned to command all SEALs on the West Coast. The failure provided the necessary data and motivation for his future success.
Chapter 6 is You Must Dare Greatly. This section focuses on overcoming fear and taking calculated risks. The text references an obstacle course, specifically an obstacle called the Slide for Life.
The Slide for Life is a long rope obstacle. It is high in the air. It connects a tall tower to the ground. To complete it safely, one might hang below the rope and pull themselves along slowly. This is the cautious method.
However, to achieve the best time, you must take a risk. The text implies a method of sliding down the obstacle headfirst.
That is correct. You mount the top of the rope and slide down rapidly. This is much faster but significantly more dangerous. The lesson here is about the calculation of risk versus reward.
To achieve greatness or to change the world, one cannot always play it safe. You must be willing to take the headfirst approach.
I agree completely. Innovation and major change require a tolerance for risk. If you are always cautious, your result will be average. The headfirst slide represents the commitment to maximum performance despite the danger.
Let us examine Chapter 7. Stand up to the bullies. This chapter takes place in the water at night. This seems like a very terrifying scenario.
The scenario is a night swim off San Clemente Island. The waters are pitch black, and they are known to contain sharks, including great white sharks. The text describes the immense fear of sensing a presence in the dark water.
The instructors provide a very specific protocol for shark encounters. It is a very direct instruction.
It is. If a shark circles you, you must stand your ground. Do not swim away in fear. If the shark actually attacks, you must punch it in the snout.
The analysis here is that sharks, much like human bullies, rely on fear. They look for weakness.
Exactly. If you show fear, they will attack. If you stand your ground and show aggression, they will often back down. McRaven connects this physical protocol to a real-world application involving Saddam Hussein.
McRaven interacted with Saddam Hussein after his capture. He describes the former dictator as a classic bully.
That is correct. When Hussein was in power, he used terror to control others. But when he was captured and removed from his power base, he was intimidated and fearful.
He was no longer a threat when confronted with courage.
Precisely. The technical takeaway is that bullies project strength, but they are often weak internally. Courage is the required countermeasure to stop them. You must not show fear.
Chapter 8 is titled Rise to the Occasion. The setting here involves underwater diving missions.
This represents the dark moment scenario. The trainees are diving in total darkness to practice attacking ships underwater. You cannot see your own hand in front of your face. It is highly disorienting.
The physical darkness serves as a metaphor for emotional darkness, such as the death of a loved one or a national tragedy.
Absolutely. The text highlights a case study of General John Kelly. It is a very moving example of leadership under extreme emotional distress.
General John Kelly's own son was killed in action, but the specific example in the book describes a moment after a military helicopter crash.
Yes. The crash killed several soldiers. McRaven observed General Kelly comforting the families of the fallen. Kelly remained remarkably strong. He smiled for them. He hugged the children.
He represented the best of humanity during the worst of times.
That is exactly the point. The lesson is that in the darkest moments, a leader must remain calm. You must rise above your own pain to help those around you find strength.
Chapter 9 is Give People Hope. This takes place during Hell Week. This is notoriously the most difficult week of the training program.
The specific setting is the mud flats. The trainees are buried in freezing, wet mud. The wind is blowing constantly. The instructors are actively pressuring them to quit.
They offer them hot coffee and warm blankets if they just leave the team. The physical condition is near hypothermia. Morale is critically low.
It is a breaking point for many men. But then, a change occurs in the group dynamic. It starts with just one individual. One man starts to sing.
The text notes that his voice was not particularly good, but the act of singing is the mechanism here. It is an act of defiance against the cold.
Exactly. Then another man joins in. And then the entire group is singing. The instructors threatened them with more time in the mud if they kept singing.
But they continued anyway. They continued because the singing provided them with hope.
Precisely. It changed their perception of the pain. The mud suddenly felt a little warmer. The time passed faster. The technical analysis is that hope is a massive force multiplier.
One person acts as a catalyst. If one person can demonstrate hope, it spreads rapidly to the entire group.
I agree. McRaven cites historical figures like Abraham Lincoln and Nelson Mandela. These are individuals who provided hope to millions. One person can truly change the group dynamic by giving people hope.
Finally, we reach Chapter 10, Never Ever Quit. This chapter focuses on a physical object in the center of the training compound, the brass bell.
The brass bell represents the exit option. It is always visible. The rule is very simple and binary. If you want to quit the training, you just ring the bell 3 times.
If you ring the bell, the pain stops immediately. You do not have to do the difficult runs. You do not have to freeze in the mud.
But there is a massive cost. The instructor warns them about this cost on the first day. The cost is a lifetime of regret. Quitting satisfies the immediate desire for comfort, but it results in a permanent psychological failure.
The instructor states clearly that quitting never makes anything easier in the long run. It establishes a terrible pattern of giving up.
Exactly. The case study for this chapter is Ranger Bates. It is a story of incredible physical and mental resilience. Ranger Bates was a soldier who lost both of his legs to a landmine.
McRaven met him in a military hospital. Despite the catastrophic injury, Bates absolutely refused to quit on life.
That is correct. Later, McRaven saw him at a military ceremony. Bates was standing tall on prosthetic legs. He even challenged other healthy Rangers to a pull-up contest. He was smiling and joking.
He perfectly exemplified the final protocol, never ring the bell.
Absolutely. No matter how difficult the situation, you must not give up. If you do not quit, you cannot be defeated.
After detailing these 10 lessons, the book concludes with a summary of the original commencement speech. There is a very interesting mathematical analysis regarding the impact of one single person.
Yes, this is a calculation of exponential growth. The premise is straightforward. If one person changes the lives of 10 people, and those 10 people each change the lives of 10 more, the effect scales very rapidly.
The calculation spans 5 generations. That is roughly 125 years. And what is the final number?
The calculation results in 800 million lives impacted. This demonstrates clearly that the behaviors learned in training are not isolated to the military. They are entirely scalable to the general population.
By applying these simple protocols, making the bed, paddling together, not quitting, a single individual can indeed change the world. It validates the entire title of the book.
I agree. It is a profound conclusion to a series of very practical lessons. We have covered the barracks, the mud, the ocean, and the battlefield. We have analyzed the importance of daily discipline, teamwork, and mental resilience.
The true strength of this book lies in its simplicity. The protocols are not overly complex. Make the bed, help your team, stand up to bullies, do not quit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, the execution of these simple tasks under extreme pressure is what defines a true leader. I strongly recommend that you, our listener, purchase and read the full book, Make Your Bed.
I completely agree. There are many more narrative details and personal stories in the text that we could not cover in this technical analysis. It is a highly valuable resource for anyone interested in personal development and leadership.
If you found value in this analysis today, we encourage the friends of the show to subscribe. We appreciate your time and your attention to this detailed review.
Thank you very much for listening. We wish you a great day.